all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or by going to veteransradio.net, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.net. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We also want to thank our latest national sponsor, Veteran Lending Council. It is a community dedicated to educating lenders, realtors, and veterans on the VA Home Loan Benefit Program. You can check them out on Facebook and other social media outlets. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio Paul J. Ryan, who's going to talk about the upcoming Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor induction ceremony for 2022. Paul, welcome back to Veterans Radio.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing well. We had you on last year to talk about last year's classes, and Paul Ryan is a retired United States Navy captain, and he's the vice chair of the board for the Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor. So he's a busy guy, and he's taken on the lead here to induct a whole new class of great Michiganders into the hall this November. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor, and we'll start there.
Sure, Jim. The Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor, we'll keep it short to Hall of Honor, has only been around for a few years. Our purpose is to not only recognize Michiganders for either their military exploits or civilian achievements, civic, business, professional, education, nonprofit accomplishments after they took the uniform off. We recognize selected individuals in an induction ceremony. This year will be held in November 18th at the Michigan History Center in Lansing. But beyond that, our goal is to educate the public, and particularly Michigan youth, about these individuals, and in so doing, help to encourage, if you will, a sense of civic pride in our country, in our state, and in its citizens.
And this is, each year is a group of military members who get in and a group of veteran members who get in. How many of each do you do each year? And tell us a little bit about how folks get even nominated for this honor.
Every year, our goal is to select 6 individuals in each category. The military category is reserved for those individuals whose military accomplishments and exploits, bravery, what have you, are worthy of recognition. And then an additional 6 in what we call the veteran category, those individuals who, as I said earlier, had some noteworthy accomplishment or accomplishments after they took off the uniform. Last year was a little bit unusual for us because of the COVID pandemic. We inducted two classes last year, the class of 2020 and the class of 2021. Since our first induction class was in 2019, this year, 2022, will actually be the fourth class of inductees that we'll bring into the hall.
And if I understand it right, Paul, these folks can be nominated by the public. They're nominated by members of the board. They maybe a VSO or somebody has nominated. Maybe a family friend has nominated. So it's really a wide open process, isn't it?
Oh, yes. And the nomination documents and the information for members of the public to nominate individuals for this honor are on the Hall of Honor's website. And even though we're fairly new at this, last year we inducted our first member of the public, was in the military category, nominated by his spouse. And he went in last year. This year, if memory serves me, we have multiple nominations from, well, we did have multiple nominations from the public, about 6 or 7 of them. And of those, I believe two actually are going in this year as inductees. The majority so far in our short history of our nominations do come from our board members, but it's obvious to me that the number of nominees that we are receiving from members of the public has grown.
Well, and as you say, they can participate each year in the spring by nominating people. The website, by the way, is militaryvetHallofHonor.org. And you can go there and find the bios of everybody who's been inducted in 2019, 2020, 2021. And we're going to talk about the 2022 inductees in a minute here. But I wanted to set up how folks can learn more about the Hall of Honor and that website, militaryvetHallofHonor.org. Now we're going to turn to the veteran category. And again, I'd ask if you can tell us sort of the basis for why people get inducted to the Hall of Honor, Paul Ryan, for the veteran category, and who are the 6 inductees for 2022 that will be part of the November 18th ceremony up in Lansing?
Yeah, well, every inductee has to have served in the armed forces. And the veteran category individuals are recognized probably not so much for what they did while they were in military service, although many of them have very interesting stories and accomplishments while they were in uniform. But the veteran category is more directed towards what these individuals accomplished, what they did after they left the military. And this year, we have another really fantastic slate of inductees, including these 6 individuals: Travis Mills, Herman Kaiser, Coleman Young, people will remember that name, Ralph Howenstein, Jerry Linegar, and Tom Skerritt, interestingly enough, the Hollywood actor.
Again, a pretty diverse group. They've all had different types of lives, but giving real weight to helping veterans and veteran causes, military causes. So it's great to talk to Captain Paul Ryan, retired of the United States Navy, Vice Chair of the Board of the Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor, about these veteran inductees. Paul, why don't you tell us about Herman Kaiser?
Sure. Herm Kaiser was born in 1938 in Grand Rapids. He enlisted in the Army as a chaplain assistant in 1962 and was commissioned as an Army chaplain in 1968. He served in Vietnam with both the 1st Infantry Division and the 4th Infantry Division, was wounded twice, once in a rocket attack on a fire base in Cambodia, actually, for which he received the Purple Heart. And the second time, he was injured as a result of a 150-foot free fall from a helicopter.
God was looking after him on that one.
Should have killed him, but it didn't. And the reason it didn't was he landed in a pile of very thick, tall grass and it broke his fall. But he was pretty badly banged up from that. Herm exhibited his own degree of bravery, particularly on one occasion where he persuaded an intoxicated soldier who was armed and threatened to shoot his other fellow soldiers. Herm convinced this guy to surrender his weapons and diffused a pretty dangerous and dicey situation. Herm received the Army's Soldier's Medal for that act. The Soldier's Medal is given for heroism not involving actual combat. Herm had a long career in the Army, positions of great responsibility in the chaplain's field, the deputy director of chaplaincy, Service Support Agency in Washington, the executive director of the Armed Forces Chaplains Board for the Department of Defense. He was the senior command chaplain for NATO in Germany for a number of years. Herm retired from the Army in 1998 as a colonel, but was recalled to active duty by the Secretary of the Army to serve in a role supporting reporting directly to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. His recall was extended in 2000 by the Secretary of Defense to serve as an advisor to the Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom at the U.S. Department of State. So Herm's expertise and experience so significant that the Army chose to detail him to this lead role in the Department of State. Herm did finally retire from the Army in 2002.
It really is another one of these where you go, well, geez, he could be in the military category, but he did so much for the Army and the Chaplain Corps post-active duty. It's very interesting.
Yeah, Herm dedicated his life, both in and particularly out of uniform, to increase the awareness of moral injury in war and veterans suffering from it. He was the founding co-director of an organization called the Soul Repair Center at Texas Christian University, which has become a very important source of informational materials stressing both the physical and the psychological aspects of post-traumatic stress, and a number of other boards and commissions. He briefed the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness 3 separate times on just war tradition and the need to change the conscientious objector policy in the armed forces. He also served as the national chaplain for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. He was a member. There are 45,000 other fellow members of the Purple Heart organization, and he was their national chaplain. And he held that role at the time of his death.
Well, he really continued his service to the community and to veterans by things that he did. I have a note here that he played a key role in establishing Hidden Wounds of War, a conference at Grand Valley State University in 2014, and continued on as a special counselor to the Kent County Veterans Treatment Court when it was established in 2015. So this is a man of faith, a man who served and certainly had very strong views about how to help folks, how to help other folks who had served.
He was very articulate and very knowledgeable very active right up until his death in 2017 at age 79. Herm is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, and that's not easy to do. I mean, you have to qualify for that. It sounds a little odd, but not everybody gets to be buried there, and Herm is one of them.
Well, again, a very interesting life story that deservedly is in the Hall of Honor. But another gentleman who fits that category would be Travis Mills. Tell us about Travis.
Yes, Travis Mills is an Army veteran, born in 1987 in Vassar, which is east of Saginaw, although Travis now lives in Maine. He enlisted in the Army in 2006 and served with the 82nd Airborne Division. During his third combat tour in Afghanistan in 2012, all four of Travis's limbs sustained severe injuries from an IED explosion. As a result, Travis became a quadruple amputee and was medically retired from the Army. He is only one of 5 quadruple amputees from the global war on terror to survive such wounds. Just absolutely unbelievable injuries that he suffered. After he was wounded, Travis made it his personal goal to recover and be able to stand at what's known as the green ramp to welcome the 82nd Airborne back from that particular deployment during which he was injured. And he actually did that. The green ramp is a large north-south parking ramp at Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina and used by the Army to stage joint operation for the Air Force. So doesn't much to me to Army Travis committed himself to recovering sufficiently to be there, and he was. He went on to write a New York Times selling memoir titled "Tough as They Come." Here's another example, Jim, of an individual who faced catastrophic adversity, physical adversity, and overcame it, not only survived, but thrived. He founded and is the board president of the Travis Mills Foundation. That foundation raised almost $3 million in donations to rehabilitate a facility called Elizabeth Arden's Maine, Maine, Chance Lodge. That used to be a spa that was established in the 30s by the cosmetic maven, businesswoman Elizabeth Arden. Was sold in 1970. Travis, with his donations, went in, acquired it, rehabilitated it, and last year, or rather in 2017, this now veterans retreat hosted over 56 combat injured veterans and their families. Just an incredible story. Yeah,
and I would recommend to anybody who is a little depressed about their life, or a little down in the dumps and grumpy about somebody took my parking spot, or I didn't get the job, or the Army didn't treat me, or the VA didn't treat me fairly. Go read Tough as They Come. When you hear Travis Mills' words and see and understand what he went through, boy, the rest of us have nothing to complain about. And he really is an inspiration, sort of a motion picture inspiration, isn't he?
I'd say the key to life is to maintain perspective. And I think Travis's story will put a lot of our trials and tribulations into perspective. And it is pretty interesting that his story is set to be the subject of a major film expected to be directed by Sylvester Stallone, none other than the Italian Stallion. And he is expected to co-star in it along with Adam Driver, who incidentally is a Marine Corps veteran himself.
Well, Travis's story is amazing. Again, well worthy of the Hall of Honor. that's being bestowed on him here in Michigan. So glad to see his story advanced and his rightful place with all these other great Michiganders. But let's do a final one here in the veterans category, and sometimes they're politicians. I know in the past inductees have included congressmen and U.S. senators and judges, because the military really becomes a launching point for a greater career afterwards. And the next one up to talk about is Coleman Young, who I think certainly did that.
Yeah, and that's certainly true. Your comment about launching grounds for bigger and better things. Coleman was born in 1918, right in Detroit. During World War II, he served in the Army Air Forces. He was a Tuskegee Airman, served as a bombardier and a navigator with the 477th Medium Bomber Group. There was an event that occurred in 1945 toward the end of the war called the Freeman Field Mutiny. This was a series of incidents at Freeman Army Airfield, which is a base in Indiana. African-American members of the 477th attempted to integrate an all-white officers club. And that attempt got some very serious pushback by Army authorities. These incidents resulted in over 160 arrests of black officers from the 477th. Some of them were arrested twice. 3 were court-martialed on relatively minor charges, and 1 was convicted. A huge injustice, racial discrimination against members of the armed forces who are fighting to protect our way of life, and they get treated like this. Finally, in 1995, the Air Force officially vindicated all these actions and reversed the conviction and expunged negative reports from the letters of and things like that from the files of some of these officers. So the wrong was eventually righted. It's interesting that this incident, the Freeman Field Mutiny, is generally recognized by historians of the civil rights movement as an important step towards the full integration of the armed forces that occurred in 1948.
Well, it's nice to see that the board for the Hall of Honor is, recognizing some of these wrongs that have been righted, whether it be Oleta Christides, a woman in World War I who didn't get treated the right way, or Virgil Nishimura Westdale, a Nisei, who didn't get treated the right way in World War II, and in this instance, an African-American officer, Coleman Young, who went on to really launch a political career and dynasty. Tell any of our listeners who may not understand that Coleman Young was the mayor of Detroit and some of the things that he did. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Coleman Young was the first African-American mayor of Detroit and served for 20 years, 1974 to 1994. And during his administration, there was really, the face of Detroit. I don't think it's an overstatement to say the face of Detroit was transformed. Under his administration, the Renaissance Center was built. The Detroit People Mover, General Motors, Hamtramck Assembly Plant, Joe Louis Arena, One Detroit Center, the Fox Theater was restored, and many others. Coleman was instrumental in advocating for jobs and economic stimulus to rebuild many of Detroit's neighborhoods, and some of those building accomplishments that his administration undertook were in Detroit neighborhoods, riverfront condominiums, other areas. He was also instrumental in advocating for affirmative action within the Detroit Police Department, and helping to integrate that agency, keeping in mind the need for a police force to be reflective of the population that it is serving. So, a very, very long tenure, and Mayor Young certainly had an impact on the city of Detroit during his administration, and really for the decades that have occurred since.
Yeah, and you can really draw the dots between his public service as a Tuskegee Airman, recognizing the segregation that was going on and wanting to right that while in service, and then that same public service and righting wrongs through his 20 years as mayor of Detroit. We're talking to Captain Paul Ryan, retired United States Navy and vice chair of the Michigan and Veterans Hall of Honor, which has its upcoming ceremony inducting folks in both from the military category and the veterans category. And what's the date of that ceremony again, Paul?
Jim, this year's induction ceremony will be on Friday, November 18th. The ceremony begins at 12:30 p.m. at the Michigan History Center in Lansing.
Yeah, and you can go to mimilitaryvethallofonor.org to get more information, both on previous inductees, but also on this particular ceremony, which, as Paul mentioned, starts at 12:30 at 702 Kalamazoo Street in Lansing, Michigan. It's always a very dignified affair, and quite impressive to learn about all of the members who are being inducted. Paul, thank you for spending some time with Veterans Radio and telling our listeners about the great work that you and the board are doing to bring these people forward and keep this history alive.
Well, thank you for having me, Jim. Speaking on behalf of the board of the Michigan Military and Veterans Hall of Honor, we absolutely love sharing these stories with the public, and we can't wait to be with members of the public, with you all, November 18th, so you can hear firsthand the great things that these inductees have accomplished.
Thanks for your time today, Paul.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by going to veteransradio.net. And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, NVBDC.org, Eisenhower Center, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Press Corn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. They keep us on the air, as does your support. Go to Facebook, go to veteransradio.net, and support our efforts. And until next time, you are dismissed.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.